Adversity, bring it. The struggle, I welcome it. Snooze on life, never there. I am Dave Regina, and this is the No Snooze Podcast. Come on. Welcome back, No Snooze Podcast, episode 193. As always, I'm in the booth with a new three. We have Jean, the woke widow, Gutierrez, Claudio, the voice, Valenzuela, and I am Dave, the body, Regina. After the loss of her parents and husband, Jean went on a search for the deeper meaning of life and death. Through her healing journey, she experienced a spiritual awakening, which in turn has led her wounds into wisdom and pain into purpose. As a transformational life coach, she specializes in grief and cultivating a positive mindset. Jean provides her clients with the tools to break through their self-limiting beliefs and self-sabotaging behaviors to achieve their goals and to reach their full potential. Jean blends the art of personal development with the healing properties of sound. With a deep understanding of the mind, body, and soul connection, Jean empowers her clients to navigate life's challenges, overcome obstacles, viewing adversity from a different lens, and to tap into their inner strength and resilience. Jean, I am so happy to have you here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited. This is so much fun.
Listen, let's do it.
Yes.
I like to always start with really how I was connected to the guest. Okay. So I'd like to shout out Sean Degnan,
yes,
who
hey,
introduced
Sean.
us.
Yes.
I know you've done a lot of work previously with Sean, but then we took it a step further and we actually had you come down and provide a sound healing experience to the 20 men that were part of the Action Cultivates Excellence Summit back in February.
Yes, which was amazing. I love to see it. I love to see men getting vulnerable and into wellness. So what'd you think of the sound bath?
So, yeah, we didn't talk about that, but we spoke about it, I think. We spoke about it a little bit as a group.
Yes.
But I will say this. I don't know if it's for everybody, but I think those who are very intentional with their lives can really create some good things with sound healing specifically. And my brain is a scatterbrain. It's always running around. It's very hard for me to focus. I told you off air, I've been meditating for 15 minutes, which I'm very proud of. And I've been doing it for, I don't know, maybe 45 or so days.
That's great.
Yes. But the sound healing was an experience that I remember feeling specifically. And I think I asked you this question, but when my hands were on the floor, I felt like my body was so heavy because I couldn't move my body, but I also felt very light in the space. I don't know if you've ever heard that before and what that means.
It's a very common sensation to feel during a sound bath. So a sound bath is exactly what it sounds like. You're bathing in healing frequencies. And those frequencies put you in this deep meditative state, which allows for healing on a cellular level. And it helps remove stagnant energy in the body. So that's what you were feeling.
My body was very stagnant.
Yes. So you can feel like you're sinking, you feel tingling, you can feel like you're floating. Some people see colors, have visions, old memories come to the surface. It's really interesting to see what comes up for people. But in turn with that, emotions can come to the surface too. My first sound bath, I started crying. So clearly I was holding on to some grief. But, you don't judge it. It's neither good nor bad. It just is. And sound healing is so powerful. I love it so much.
Yeah. And I specifically remember being mindful of my fingertips. And I remember feeling every part of the floor with each individual fingertip, but then I couldn't move them. It was bizarre. It really was. But then I was so locked into the voice, the sound, and I really, really enjoyed the experience. What was it like for you coming in as this? I mean, you don't have the largest presence about you, right? And there were some dudes in there that were 6'7".
Yes.
Kind of intimidating.
It was.
And you do have a very powerful presence when it comes to your voice and the expertise behind what you do. And you made us all feel extremely comfortable. Hopefully we
you.
did the same for you. But what was it like having 20 plus men upstairs in that room and providing that service to us?
I'm not going to lie. It was intimidating because I wasn't sure how you guys would receive it. I knew you were open to it, which is the first step. I love what you guys are doing, being open to wellness and just experiencing new things, being open to these things. It's really not common for men to be in this space, and I really admire it. It was amazing. Honestly, it changed my life. I'm not going to lie. I've never experienced, so many men, that energy. I've never experienced that. So it was special for me.
And now I want to flip it to the voice because Claudio was actually in that room too.
He was,
and his role was a little bit different because he obviously had the camera and microphones in his hand as we were all locking and doing this. What was it like for you to observe like an experience like that, CV? We never even spoke about that.
Yeah, no. So there's a couple things. Number one, I'm trying to be focused on what I have to record. And on the same token, I had my headphones on, so the audio was very clear and it's very quiet, with the exception of the bowls or whatever they call it.
The bowls. Yeah.
And so I'm listening to what's going on. I'm enjoying it. I like it. I kind of want to be down there, kind of laying down, doing the thing. But then I start hearing like a couple of snores.
A couple guys definitely.
And I start getting very mindful of that because it's so loud or so clear in my ear that's the only thing that I have to worry about in that moment. So half of me is like wanting to be laying down because I actually enjoyed it more than I think you can understand because I like that stuff. I just didn't have a chance to lay down. And I was kind of trying to put the camera down on the gimbal and maybe I could kind of partake. Yeah. But when I put it down is when I started hearing some snores. And
shout out Benny Lewis. I remember Benny was specifically snoring.
I'm not going to shout out anybody because it was more than one. It was a good amount of people, but it was
that's
fun.
That's a good sign of the healing when you're in that
Let's talk
space.
about that a little bit too. So even in meditation, and I was talking to my girlfriend Katie about this too, and she's like an expert meditator. I mean, this chick can go an hour and a half.
I need to meet her. She is my people.
Oh, absolutely. You guys would really hit it off. She explained to me that it's okay to fall asleep during a meditation.
Yes.
Because what it's doing is actually, it's like intentful sleep where you're not like in this REM sleep and you're still hearing the subconscious of what's going on.
Yes.
So to somebody who may be starting out and maybe they fall asleep every time they do this, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So with my clients, because I do Reiki as well, and usually on the table, they'll kind of go into this meditative, they'll fall asleep. And it's great because that's showing me that the body's feeling comfortable. So a healer isn't necessarily, we're not healing you. We're creating a sacred space for you to relax and be comfortable so that you heal yourself. So that's really what it is. You being comfortable, you're able to, heal.
Yeah. I'm excited about this episode, seriously, because it's a portion of wellness and
Yes.
A space that like I'm so interested in, and I'm just really starting to dive in. I've had a couple of great experiences with it, but I think the majority of men, I don't know if this is a bold statement or not, but the majority of men are not really doing this type of activity, especially men that look like me.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I really want to open everybody up to this. I'm excited to dive in, but I'd be remiss not to start with your story. And one of the first sentences in your bio that I was reading before is after the loss of your parents and husband. So obviously you have extreme experience with adversity and grief. Talk to me about, I guess, start with how you grew up and then how you kind of met your husband and then what happened along the way.
So, I just want to start by saying, like, even though, I had so much trauma and loss, my journey has really become more about the healing as opposed to the suffering, which I love. So I just wanted to start with that. But I grew up in Staten Island, New York, and I had a great childhood. Honestly, I really have nothing. My parents were wonderful. I went to Sacred Heart University, and that's where I met my husband at the time. And I got pregnant and we got married and we were so in love. I mean, we were just head over heels, like so in love. We had a great life together. And I think in 2014 was when things started to go downhill. And I always like to compare this. It's this quote. It's like the universe whispers until it screams. So I think all along, in retrospect, the universe was trying to wake me up, and it just took, multiple things to happen to get me to that point. But my mom got sick in 2014. She passed from cancer. I took care of her. It was, very difficult, as you can imagine. And at that point, after she passed, I really started to dive into like, what's the purpose of us being here? A little bit of spirituality, but life was happening. I was a mother, I was working, I was a wife. Like I really didn't have that time to sit with myself and question these things. So life, I just kept going and I pushed it down, kept going. And then my father got sick shortly after. And then I had to take care of him. He had cancer. And that really put me into a dark place. So losing both my parents, I felt very alone, that not many could understand, even though that's silly because a lot of people go through that. But just when you're in it, you feel that way. So what happened after that? Shortly, it was just a year after my husband passed. And this was sudden. It was very shocking and traumatizing. We had just moved into a new house. He didn't even spend a night in the house. He had left, we signed the papers, and Alan was actually a realtor. We signed the papers and he left for a business trip and he never came home. And I was left with just boxes, 2 kids. I wasn't working at the time. There was just a lot of uncertainty. Shortly after that, there's another layer to this, and this is exclusive content because I've never said this anywhere. But I had found out that my husband was cheating on me on top of all that. So I was in a very dark place. It was basically my identity was lost. Myself, my sense of safety, everything of who I was completely shattered. And it was a very painful experience. So I did what most people would do, and that was to start drinking, right? I was drinking heavily. I was numbing myself. And then shortly after that, COVID happened. So I was really forced to be alone, right? And sit with this pain. No one could save me, right? It was just me. And it was like this really defining moment where, it's like, this is where books are made and this is where movies happen. Like, this is the defining moment. Like, am I gonna be a victim and let this take over me? Or am I gonna lean into it and let it transform me? And that's what I chose. I chose to transform.
Okay, well.
Was that enough for you?
No, yeah. Got there quickly, and thank you for your vulnerability and sharing your story. And this is the first time for me, obviously, hearing this too. We've spoke before, but not in depth like this. So I really appreciate you sharing this. So you lose mom.
Yes.
Dad also gets cancer. Was this the same cancer? Is this something that's hereditary now?
It was different. Yeah. Well, actually, my mother's. I had to get tested for the BRCA mutation, and I actually am positive. So really? I actually did have a double mastectomy shortly after she passed, which was another, a life event that happened in between everything. But I don't really, bring it up because I feel like I have enough to unload on people with the story. But yes, that is a big part of it. So I will need a total hysterectomy eventually too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's just another
layer.
We'll add in there.
But that's okay.
But okay, so now your husband.
Yes.
And rest in peace, what was his name?
Patrick.
Okay, so Patrick and Jean buy a house, and you close on the house, and all the boxes and everything are there, but he doesn't even get to spend a night. Yeah. He goes on a business trip and never comes home.
Correct.
Was this a tragic death? Was it?
Yes.
How did this happen?
So he just did not wake up. I was told
healthy prior. Healthy.
Yes, very healthy. But this is so. I eventually found out I put the pieces together because honestly, I didn't get any help from the detectives on that end. I pieced things together like most women do. We're the best detectives. Like I didn't need him. I just was like, I'm going to figure this out myself. So I came to the conclusion that he was given a fake Xanax and it was fentanyl. So he had passed in his sleep.
Oh my God. Yeah. And this was, how were you notified of this?
It was literally a phone call, and it was crazy because
there must have been some time that you were trying to reach out to him and you couldn't contact him.
I was. That whole morning, I was like, I haven't heard from him, but maybe the flight's delayed or he's rushing. I just didn't think anything of it. I was so busy unpacking. And the neighbor across the street was having all the women over, the wives and stuff. And she's like, oh, welcome to the neighborhood. Why don't you come over? So I'm like, okay. So I don't know these women. I'm sitting in their backyard and my phone starts ringing. And it's, an Arizona number because he was in Arizona. And I'm like, this is weird. And then I receive a voicemail and it's like, this is Detective so-and-so. I'm looking for Gene Gutierrez. I'm like, oh my God, he got arrested. That was my first, because he was stupid like that. He would get into trouble. Yeah. So that wouldn't have shocked me. I was like, oh my God, he's, in jail. I'm going to have to bail him out. Like, what did he do? What could possibly have happened? This was a work trip. So I'm like, I excuse myself and I walk into this woman's house in her dining room and I call the detective back. And he was just so blunt about it. He was like, oh, your husband was found dead in his hotel room. And I was just like, who is this? Like, how do I know you're real? Like, who you say you are? And then everything just went, wow. It was like this, I was in this tunnel, anxiety and panic. And I just left. I just walked out and, these poor women, they were probably like, what just happened?
I'm not really too worried about these women, let's be honest with you.
And then I walked home, and that walk home, it was interesting because you would think I would have been crying or running home. I did not cry, and I just walked so slowly home. It was just a very weird response.
Wow, I just got a visual of that too.
Yeah.
Like you're walking in the street and just having all these emotions.
Yes.
Okay, so now there's also a different layer to this because you have children.
Yes.
So how did you, I guess, you had to put yourself on the back burner almost in terms of your emotions. So you're already grieving mom, dad, and now Patrick, but you have to be strong for your children.
Correct.
How did you even make the first move with that?
It was really hard. I had to keep a lot inside. At first I couldn't tell them what had happened. There was a lot of shame involved, and even just, finding out later the cheating aspect, there was a lot of shame. So I was trying to protect them at all costs. So, I said, something happens medically, like, because I didn't want to scare them. There was just so much. They were young. It was very hard. So there's a lot on my shoulders. My son was 8 at the time.
Wow.
Yeah, my daughter was just starting high school. So
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so now what about their death sparked this in you? Like
Correct.
the spiritual piece, right? You said you were getting to a place to where then I stopped you to unpack a little bit, where you had this like defining moment of like, okay, am I going to be a victim or, shout out Joel Osteen, a victor?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So you obviously chose the latter, which is a remarkable feat of you.
Which is not for the weak.
Yeah, well, I got to be honest here, Gene. Like, this is one of the, not only the best stories that I've ever heard, but seeing where you're at now, you wouldn't know. You really wouldn't. That's how much work you've done.
Yes.
So I really just want to commend you for all the work that you're putting in and working on yourself. And now you're doubling down and giving back to everybody else.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I kind of, like I was saying, that defining moment, I was drinking and then I was like, what am I doing? This is not strength here, and I'm little, but I'm fierce, I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to be a victim. I have to show my kids like that I am strong and I can do this. I got to get them through life. I'm not going to let this ruin their life. So I became really obsessed with death, to be honest. I was researching things. I was watching documentaries. I was reading books. I was meditating, anything to really try to connect. I knew there was more. I was searching for more, as many were just in general during COVID, but I was definitely on a different level of intensity. And I was really isolated. And I had an experience during a meditation, which I will describe in my book, which will be coming out hopefully this year. But it was an experience that I heard a voice. I had something, a shift inside. That's the only way I could describe it. And I was never the same since. It was really this, shift from the victim mentality. Like, this is not happening to me. Because it was always like, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? And it shifted to like, no, this is happening for me. This was not the life you were supposed to be living. I removed this person for this reason, right? So I had this shift, and then it wasn't just for me, it was through me as well. So once I had that epiphany, I was never the same after that. I couldn't really go back to normal life. So.
Wow. All right. Well, I think the stage is clearly set. Your credentials in this field are unbelievable. Let's talk a little bit about what a spiritual life coach is. I think a lot of people know what a life coach is, but in terms of a spiritual life coach, when do you seek one out? What is it?
Right. So I kind of like to start with just saying that everyone evolves, right? In some way or form. But if you're not intentional about it, you become the byproduct of who and what is around you, and not necessarily the most authentic aspect of yourself, right? So that's where spiritual life comes in. Spiritual life coach comes in. I help you step into your power, into your true authentic self, by breaking through self-limiting beliefs, self-sabotaging, the way you may be self-sabotaging, through like inner child healing. And that really helps you to step into your true potential on a different level.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about true potential. What would be like a first step for somebody who might be like, I don't need a spiritual life coach right now, but I need to start getting into this space. What is something that you would recommend for anybody that has the intent, but doesn't know where to start?
Okay. I mean, definitely some shadow work would be done.
What is that? Do you stand next to a wall and look at your shadow? Because that's what I would assume. What is that?
So shadow work is really, again, not for the weak, but it's looking at yourself, why you act the way you act, what triggers you, why do you think it triggers you? It's just like this deep reflection on yourself and why you behave the way you do. Now,
do you advise somebody ask those specific questions on paper and answer them?
Correct. You could do it that way.
Okay.
Yes. I like to start with just, the self-sabotage.
So give me 3 questions that somebody should ask themselves if they're looking to dive into spirituality.
So wait, what was that? 3 questions?
Yeah.
That what?
3 questions. So you said what are your limiting beliefs?
Right.
Why do you act the way you act? Like what are 3 very beginner questions on how somebody, because somebody who's listening to this, if you're not in the space, you just don't know, right? So I want to really break it down. Very simple. 3 questions in the spiritual space of how somebody who's just starting out can get involved.
Okay. So I would say looking up some journal prompts would be great, especially with like self-sabotaging. Like, do you consider yourself a people pleaser?
Okay, that's 1.
Okay. Do you consider yourself hypervigilant? Because that's a trauma response as well. Or a hyperachiever. That's another one. And then also just evaluating anytime you get triggered by something. Following your emotions. So it's interesting because there's a scale of emotions, right? And some are considered higher vibe and low vibe. So like low would be fear, right? And gratitude's the highest. And there's this association that one's good and one's bad. But that's not really the case. The case is that all emotions hold wisdom for us, okay? So it's really more neutral. It's not good or bad. It's more of a signal. So if you're in that low frequency, so like a great example is jealousy, right? If you're feeling jealous of someone, let's say they're starting a podcast, right? And it triggers something inside you, you're jealous. You're like, oh, like, I don't know how I feel about that, whatever. It's really a sign for you, a signal that this is laying dormant within you. So if you can really evaluate these emotions that are considered negative and try to figure out what is it trying to tell me? What is the lesson behind it? What is it showing me? It's really empowering. So there's really no negative emotion.
Wow, I love that. Are you looking to elevate your brand with captivating visuals and immersive sound? Look no further than the home of the No Snooze podcast, Kayi Visions Productions. your go-to destination for cutting-edge audio and video production. At Kai Visions, we don't just create content, we create experiences that leave a lasting impact. From podcasts, YouTube variety shows, sleek corporate videos, to attention-grabbing promotional campaigns, our team of experts is dedicated to turning your vision into reality. Choose Kai Visions for a production experience like no other. It's time to make your brand known. Contact us today at kaivisions@gmail.com or find us on Instagram at Kai Visions. Kai Visions Productions, where audiovisual excellence meets innovation. Now, back to the Epi. Is there a difference between ritual and routine?
I guess slightly. Ritual, I feel like, has more intention behind it. Routine can kind of become just something you do. You don't think about it.
It definitely sounds more spiritual to me.
Yeah,
right? A ritual versus like a morning routine.
Exactly. And, I always tell my clients, we don't decide our futures. We decide our habits and our rituals decide our future. Okay, I don't know where I heard that, but I heard it somewhere. So I can't credit whoever that came from. Yeah, okay. But it's so powerful. Our rituals are so important. And I know you do some daily rituals.
Yes. I mean, everything has really become... So I'm kind of struggling now with, are they habits or are they systems? And I really want to try to create systems in my life. I think systems are very powerful. And once something is a system, it's now, and this is my own personal thought on it, but now it's beyond non-negotiable. Like when it's a system that's built in place, it just happens regardless, right? So I wake up and I throw Joel Osteen in my ear for 30 minutes. I hydrate with my lemon and salt. My coffee's picked out the night before. I meditate for 15 minutes.
That's great.
I read my Bible, a couple pages. And I feel really accomplished by 6:20 a.m. because I've done all those things. And then when life happens, I will say, for the meditating so far, when life happens to you, I'm a little bit more like, no big deal. And I do struggle with meditation a lot. And I want to be clear about that because I'm really trying it, but it takes me like at least half of the time to really, really focus. And I sit there and I tell myself, stay focused, have intention. And then I do get these visions of like, what the next summit looks like and, me on a stage speaking to thousands of people. And I really dive into that. But then there's this other little nonsense voice that's like, oh, what are you having for lunch today, homie? Like, and I battle that.
Yes.
And I think that's a normal thing. But yes, I'm heavy into, morning rituals and routines. What does a typical morning look like for you?
It's like building a muscle. So just keep at it. You know how to build muscle, so you'll be fine. So my mornings are, I meditate, I journal. I love to just move my body in some way, either that's stretching or work out. Like it varies on the type of mood I'm in. And grounding as well. Grounding is so
outdoor
important.
Grounding?
Yes, absolutely.
So you get outside?
I get outside barefoot.
Really?
Yes. Yes. Think about it. We wear shoes all day. We're so disconnected from Mother Nature and the earth. It's so healing. That's why, you love the beach, because you're grounding. You're absorbing the negative ions from the earth. It's so healing. Grounding is a must. And if you don't do it, I highly suggest, while you drink your coffee, step outside.
Is there weather? Is it weather permitting for you? Like
sometimes.
Do you go outside and you're like,
it's too cold.
No, it's too cold.
Maybe not. Yeah.
Even the way you're sitting, do you know how hard it would be for me to sit like that?
Oh, it's all the yoga. Maybe you need to start yoga too.
You're big into yoga?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Anything.
Yeah. That's like my next. That'll be later on in life because I just can't take on anymore right now. I feel like I'm.
No, you're doing great. You're doing
trying.
great.
I'm really trying.
Yeah, rituals are so important though. I think that. Especially like you said, like when things are going wrong or something like that, they're great to lean on. So let's say you're like it's all right. So let me start before I go there. When you perform these rituals every morning, you feel good about yourself, right? It's an act of self-love. It's you making a promise to yourself and fulfilling that, right? And it's telling your subconscious that you're worthy. Right? So when you do that consistently, it's this form of self-love, right? So let's say you go through a breakup or something, or life just happens. Instead of, going back to self-destructing behaviors, you can lean on your rituals and it helps you heal. So rituals are so important.
And I can really attest to that too. So I don't know if you're aware, but 2 years ago, I was separated from my wife. I don't know. We were together since we were 19 years old. Had a beautiful baby who I'm sure you see on Instagram.
She is so cute.
Shout out
and
to
her
Calvin
outfits.
And I
So
do her
cute.
hair. I do everything.
I'm impressed.
I really do, and I take pride in it.
Gorgeous.
Thank you so much. She looks just like me. That's not true. But
She does.
So 2 years ago, I was going through a really tough time, and I can kind of relate to the drinking thing, because I was drinking to, really just like, I don't know if I would say feel better, but just like not think about things maybe. Right. And I wouldn't do it Monday to Thursday, but then Friday night and Saturday night, I'm going out. And it was like, I like told myself this false narrative of like, yeah, you worked so hard, you went through this, and now you deserve to drink your face off. So I'm 135 days alcohol free.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I'm really seeing that, you don't really need alcohol for this stuff. So I could really relate to what you said about like, leaning on a vice versus, leaning into the rituals.
Right.
And I take pride in my rituals in the
You
morning.
should. And that's amazing that you're not drinking. And drinking lowers your frequency. So I'm just going to add that in. I know
Do
a
you
lot of
drink
people,
at all now?
No, I
Not
do
at all.
not. No.
See, yeah. And even your skin looks great.
Oh, yeah. I feel amazing. I mean, it's called spirits for a reason, because it lowers your frequency and allows for entities to kind of enter you.
Have you ever heard that? Spirits? Yes. So you have wine and spirits. They call it spirits. Right?
Yeah, because it lowers your frequency. So like, I mean, my
like a
husband-
liquor store, like wine and spirits, right? But it's, yeah.
Yeah, my husband,
interesting.
he used to drink, and he was an alcoholic, but he would sometimes, their face changes. It was, someone else. It wasn't him. So it really, so.
Wow. Okay. Why do people self-sabotage? And then can you give us an example of what a limiting belief might be? And then a self-sabotaging behavior?
Okay. So self-sabotaging, we develop when we're younger, right? As a coping mechanism from some kind of trauma in childhood. And it doesn't have to be a big traumatic event. It could be small, right? It's this coping mechanism that we develop. And then as we become an adult, it becomes this unconscious belief. And we walk around not knowing why we're doing the things we're doing, right? You may feel stuck. You may feel like, why can't I get past this? So some self-sabotaging behaviors, inner child work is really how we get through that. And some examples, like I said before, are people-pleasing, hypervigilance. Like hypervigilance could be, from an unsafe feeling, unstable childhood. People-pleasing is just, you never felt seen or heard. So there's a bunch. Victim mentality, hyperachiever. So, a lot of times we're walking around and you're talking to people, and let's say someone gets angry at you, or, they get triggered in some way. You're not talking to the adult of them. You're talking to the 7-year-old version of them. So once you become aware of that, it's very empowering. But you also have to be careful, because there's a downside. Because if you become so compassionate to people because you understand why they're acting the way they're acting, that you need better boundaries sometimes. Because I'm always like forgiving everyone. I'm like, oh, they probably went through something, at 5 years old. So that's why they did that. But yes, that's really where it comes from. And then a self-limiting belief could be just like, I'm not worthy, or, so it's the beliefs that come from the self-sabotaging. It's all connected.
I saw this this therapist that I follow on Instagram, and he said something about, it was a couple that was fighting, verbal, just verbal disagreements. And basically he said, like, you could be a 30 or 40-year-old human being, but then when you get out of character and you get upset and you start fighting, the analogy he used, he's like, would you be screaming at your 7-year-old daughter? Like, because
Yep.
basically the guy that's getting upset, he's like you said, like a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old.
Yes.
But that's almost offensive. Like, you get what I'm saying?
Yes,
Like, if
yes.
somebody, imagine, CB, you're fighting with Catherine, and she's like, I'm not going to fight with you right now because I'm talking to the 7-year-old Claudio. Wouldn't you? I would be upset about that.
Yes.
You know,
yes,
so it's something to be just conscious of. And I don't think that's the time to ever say that to somebody, because I know
No.
me, like,
Don't
if I'm
say it.
upset in the moment, don't tell me that I'm 7 because it's
Don't
tough.
say it, but just be aware. Like,
yeah.
okay, this is something that hurts them in some way.
The
This
thing is, after
trigger.
listening to this, now we all know.
Yeah.
We don't even have to say it. So if we argue, it's like, you know what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
7-year-old.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, you're
baby.
upset? Oh, okay.
okay.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
No,
yeah.
very interesting
So
stuff.
it's very powerful. Yeah. So inner child healing, we you can do it multiple ways. You could do it under hypnosis, which I've done, which was pretty powerful. I do a lot with my clients visualization. You can use, you kind of have to visualize yourself as a child, and then you are the adult that you needed in that moment.
Can I stop you there?
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, I don't know why that sounds hard. It's like you're
be.
saying it's so easy, like, and it's flowing, so naturally for you because obviously you're an expert in this field. But for me, who's so far removed from like that type of behavior, I really struggle with like being able to sit down with intention, having somebody talk to me about like, okay, David, we're going to dive deep into your childhood, picture yourself as a 10-year-old boy. And like, do I really go through the motions of like, okay, I'm a 10-year-old, I'm outside dribbling this basketball. I remember when mom came outside and I started getting nervous because I had to see, did she have a drink in her hand? Like, do I start going that way?
Yes, you can start that way. You can also, for people that can't really visualize, I have them get a little photo of when they were a child, and they can speak to it, talk to it, write a letter.
I guess it's not that hard because I was just about to flow.
You were
through
doing
a whole-
it.
Wow, I
Yeah.
guess
And
it's not that hard.
It's not meant to really be hard. Like this kind of spiritual work. It's, everyone wants us to heal. The universe wants us to heal. So that's why you need a life coach, spiritual life coach.
It's also going from memory. So, I mean,
Yes.
when you think about what it is, it's not, yes, you are visualizing, but you're also kind of tapping into the memories of when you were younger.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's why the visualization probably
what if you
feels
got a bad
little
memory?
easier. Well, that's what you're visualizing.
Yeah.
And that's what you're kind of going through. And then you're probably
Right.
making alternate stories or
Right.
alternate
Correct.
versions of
It's
whatever
all your
it is.
perception of
Yeah.
what the moment was. It doesn't have to be exactly how it was. It's your perception of it.
Yeah, the mind is really strong.
It is.
I mean, you
It's
hear it all the
powerful.
time, but like even what I just did, I'm actually pretty like, wow. Like, why was that the first vision? Like, I was outside with a basketball, and then I got nervous when I heard the door open because I remember that. But I've never discussed something like that.
I had one too while you were telling yours. It was
Right.
crazy. Yeah.
What was it?
Well, I think I was like 7 or 8, maybe, or 9. I don't know. And it was going to a soccer field and just not prepared. That's all I could think in my head. Not prepared. I didn't have cleats. So then it's just like that walk. And I remember this, and I don't know if it was exactly like this, but that's the thought that crept in my head as you were saying playing with the basketball until I saw my mom. I was like, oh,
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, that is
I don't know.
interesting.
This is
I don't even know what it means.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you need a life coach.
Gene
too.
knows. Gene knows.
I got both. You both will be my clients.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
So
Yeah.
how do you teach people to break through their limiting beliefs? Limiting beliefs are very common nowadays. And I think we overanalyze limiting beliefs sometimes. Like I even asked you the question of what it was, but we need to be mindful at how many negative thoughts we have about ourselves, right? We're already so the way the brain works, and they call me the big science on this podcast. They being myself, right? Just so you're aware.
Yes.
The experts say that I'm the big science. But typically on an average day, we have up to 60,000 thoughts, and 80% of them are negative, right? And that's it's actually a good thing because your brain is protecting you, and stress, there are good forms of stress. So your brain does lean into that stressful side of things to always be in protective mode of you. But now limiting beliefs are like not intentional, but they're more directed at you specifically, right? Not like, oh my God, I'm going to cross the street and get hit by a car type thing. It's like, no, like I don't like the way my legs look because of X, I don't know. Or, I'm not going to get this promotion at work, or I don't deserve a good relationship.
I have a question about that. Do you think that these are like built by society, or our perception of how they're built by society?
I think it's both.
It's part of it, yeah.
I think it's both. Go ahead. You're the.
I know.
So the
Yeah,
big science.
it's part of it.
The big science will pass it over to the expert.
Yeah, no, it's part of it. You know, a lot of the spiritual work is actually unlearning everything that you've learned. Yeah, it's really starting over again, unlearning it all and then relearning it.
So my question to you
Yeah, what
was,
was the question?
how do you teach people to break through limiting beliefs?
So it's like, you know, working a muscle. It takes some time. But I would say with, you know, kind of the rituals, right? That those acts of self-love, making little promises to yourself to kind of give you that confidence that you're worthy. So I would start there. Definitely journaling. There's so many tools that I give. I also do EFT tapping. So it's like emotional freedom technique. It's like tapping and stating certain affirmations. Affirmations are powerful too, just like ways to raise your frequency. But before I even get into that, I always start with, what are you doing that is low frequency? So
Can you give us some common low frequency behaviors?
yes. Gossiping is a big one. Just what are you consuming? What music are you listening to? What shows are you watching? I don't listen to like, you know, songs about big booty hoes anymore, you know, like I don't do that. So, and I guess what I say is extreme, but you know, I just kind of am really conscious of what I'm listening to. And another one that a lot of people probably won't want to talk about, I don't know if people are ready for this, but casual sex is definitely low frequency.
What's that?
Casual sex. And
yeah, like,
so
this is not
just
with your
sleeping
partner.
around, like if you have multiple partners, and you're just like not
polygamous, if you will.
Yeah, it's
the
an
big
energy.
polygamy.
Yeah, so casual sex is an energy exchange. Okay. So when you're exchanging energy with these people, you're taking on their traumas and the traumas of the people they've slept with, and it's just this cycle. So it's really important to be aware of who you're exchanging energy with.
Okay, so this isn't casually sleeping with your partner. This is casually sleeping around the community.
Yes, which is our culture today. I feel like, I don't know, I'm very old school. I don't do that, but that's a whole nother episode. But that's another way to low frequency.
Wow, that's interesting. To hear that.
Low frequency.
Most guys would assume that that's like a way of like release, and not no pun intended there, but like, you know, you're kind of just going through the motions, doing things that maybe are like a stress reliever.
Right.
So it's actually the opposite. So what I'm hearing from you is low frequency behaviors actually provide low frequency to high output in a negative way, if that makes sense. So like you consuming negative things, your life can really go to trash pretty quick.
Yeah, well, think about how you speak to yourself. You have to be careful how you speak to yourself. Words are spells, and that's why they call it spelling, right? So the way you speak to yourself, like you know, if someone's saying something funny and someone goes, "Oh, I'm dying," like I'm like, "Oh, don't say that." You know, just the way you word things, little tiny shifts, or like when you're sick, say, "I'm healing." Just little things make a difference. We really don't realize it.
Spell and spelling. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
You're good. I strongly encourage you to hire Jean to be your transformational life coach here.
And drinking too is low vibe, but
and these are all typical behaviors though. That's
this is our culture. This is what we're.
And then what happens when you stack the low frequency behaviors? Let's talk about a night where you're drinking all night, listening to big booty music, and you go home casually sleep with somebody. You're really fucked.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
No, it's bad. So, but yeah, and then they're like, then people ask, well, how do I raise my frequency?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
And then they try to cover with that. And I'm like, well, you got to work on the stuff that you're doing on a day to day that's lowering it first. You know, let's start there. And then we can get into the high vibe stuff.
So are you like, okay, so if somebody hires you to be their coach and they like are doing that 3 nights a week.
Yeah.
Are you like, call me when you change your behavior?
Yeah. I mean, I really, when I accept a client, I need to know that they're ready to do the work.
Right.
Because I don't think people realize what it entails. So we do have a discovery call, and I really see and assess where they're at. You know, are they really stuck in this victim mentality? And I could tell too if they're not, they want to do the work, but there's something they're afraid. We kind of gauge it, and I'll accept them or not. If it's not a good fit, if I feel like they're not ready, then I want to help everyone. But
that's powerful.
Yeah.
You gave me a couple things on how you teach them to break through?
I think I did.
Did we?
Yeah, making promises to yourself,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then lower frequency stuff.
Yes, right, okay.
Well, high frequency stuff we could.
Well, I want to shift real quick to all those, because what I'm gauging in terms of breaking through these limiting beliefs. The very first step is look at the low frequency behaviors in your life. That's really step one, identifying those and then working on those. How do you now begin to cultivate a positive mindset once you identify these low frequency behaviors and you're able to now stop them? What's the next step in building a positive mindset?
Okay, well, I don't want to give too much away because that's what my job is as a coach. But again, like the rituals, making those promises to yourself and following through on them, journaling. Again, we'll go through shadow work, journal prompts, and then practicing how when a negative thought comes in, how you're going to immediately shift it. You're becoming aware of the negative thought, because a lot of the times you're not even aware of them. They're just coming. But as you do this work, you start to, as soon as it comes in, you're like, oh, that's a negative thought. I need to shift it. So, and then with time, it's like building a muscle. You eventually, start doing that more and more and more. And then eventually you don't even have to think about, I'm shifting this. It just shifts on its own. And then it just gets better and better.
Yeah. In business specifically, I get these, sorry, CV. I get these moments where I have these negative thoughts and I turn it to a positive action in my life to try to shift it immediately. And I can give you an example. So my facility is heavily trafficked. So I'll be like mid spreadsheet, mid email, mid project, mid presentation, something. And I know that I should have walked around the building to see, a dignitary that came in. Right. But I'm mid shift. And what I want to do is just stay there and do it. And immediately in that moment, when I think about that of what I should do, I actually do the opposite. And I get up and I walk around for 5 minutes. I introduce myself, say hello, and then I come back to center. So that's just an example of what you're saying.
Yes, that's great.
Negative thought, positive action.
Yes, that's great.
CV, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, it was a question with the shift. Which you kind of answered a little bit, well, with how you do it. But how do you shift when you get a negative thought? Because I was going to say kind of similar to what you said. And it's something my wife says all the time to me, because I tend to have these negative pockets. And to always almost like shift it to a positive thought immediately on that very same thing. So like, it's raining today. Oh, it's a terrible day. It's like, oh, it's a beautiful day because, that's somebody that's crying, whatever, like something positive,
Right.
So what are ways of shifting thought patterns when they're negative?
So, for example, so you're saying like how the weather was bad, you have to shift. Sometimes you have to get creative, but, the weather's awful today. Well, my plants were dying, or, you have to shift it. It could be the littlest thing. Glimmers are a great, tool that I use. So glimmers are noticing the very little beauty, moments of awe around you. So let's say,
give me one about myself.
your smile is bright and
Thank
sparkling.
you so much.
Just like little things.
But there was nothing negative there, though.
Yeah, I know.
We gotta go. You got big teeth, but but your smile
It's
is
really just
great.
again, it's a muscle. You have to shift it. It takes time. It really
right.
does. So just notice where you feel it in your body too. So like whatever this emotion is, like how I went back to that scale of emotions, like. The negative emotions are not really negative. They're telling us something. So maybe you could start there. What is this telling me? What is it trying to show me?
A lot of work over
Yeah,
here.
I told you it's not for the weak. It's hard work. It really is. But it's so rewarding. Like no, and I always say this. There's this like quote that it's like, no one gave me this piece. I worked for it. And it's so sacred to me because of that. And no one can really disturb my peace anymore. I've worked so hard at it. It's like, it's really hard to piss me off.
It really is. But you can also see this is elite stuff. You hear it all the time of everything we're really talking about, right? And I know for me, I take it for granted because you're like, oh yeah, I could do that. I could do that. You know how hard it is to really tap into everything that you're doing?
Yes.
You know, and yeah, I do this stuff on the fitness space, right? So like I know how to do challenging things over a long period of time. But for something like this could really change your life.
Yes.
And everybody needs it. I need it heavily.
Yes.
For sure, because there's so many negative limiting beliefs that I still have on myself. I had a really good phone call with one of my mentors, and my mentor was like, you know, when are you doing this coaching program? And I'm like, well, like, you know, my time is a little bit limited, so I was going down the path of excuses. And then she was like, all right, well, let's talk about pricing. Like, you're $60,000 a year. I'm like, what? Who's paying me $60,000 a year to coach? Like, so I started going, you know, because you hear that number and you're like, whoa, that's a lot. And she's like, yeah, no, you're taking 8 to 10 clients for the year at $60,000 a pop. And like, she's like, you see though, you don't own it.
See, this is an interesting thing that you're bringing up because everyone has a certain threshold of happiness, right? And this begins, again, when you're a child, right? If you haven't experienced a lot of happiness or good things, like you have this threshold, a limit, right? And when it surpasses that and it's amazing and things are so great, what do? You self-sabotage to bring yourself back down to that comfortable level of happiness. You're like,
what you feel that you're worth.
Yes.
So I gave her the analogy and I'm like, well, listen, I have no problem selling $100 product in an ebook, right, to 600 people. No problem. Like I can do that. But for me to put something out publicly that I'm charging $60,000 a year for 10 elite clients, I was like, that sounds crazy. She's like, yeah, you got work to do.
Yeah,
you know, because she's like, you're worth more than that. And she's like, she gave me an even more example because I'm like, listen, the people in my circle, blah, 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 whatever, like, you know, they're not really, they're not paying that to be coached. So she sends me a receipt of this other lady who made $27,000 a year and somehow found a way to pay her $100,000 for the year. She's like, it could be done.
Yeah.
And it was mind blowing to me because I'm sitting there like, but. She's like, let me know when you want to stop. Just let me know when you're done with your little, you know, tantrum here on why you're not worth this because you're worth so much more than that. So, you know,
you're
at some
afraid
point,
of your own light.
At some point, I'll be announcing that I'll be charging $60,000 a year for
and
coaching.
as you should. You should.
Unbelievable.
You're worth it. Yeah. You have to believe it. You have some work to do.
Yeah, right.
I can't wait.
This episode is brought to you by Hudson Valley Teeth Whitening. Hudson Valley Teeth Whitening is an experienced teeth whitening salon where you can get up to 7 shades lighter with just a 60 or 90-minute session in a professional and relaxing setting. They offer the most superior product coupled with the highest quality of customer service available to get you instant results. Whether you have an important event to attend, such as a wedding, birthday, anniversary, interview, or you are just unhappy with the color of your teeth, this LED light technology helps whiten your teeth fast and easy. At Hudson Valley Teeth Whitening, they understand how important your smile is to you. And speaking from personal experience, you'll be guided by highly efficient staff in a relaxing environment to reach your desired shade. Let them know you're a friend of Dave's from the No Snooze podcast and connect with them at HudsonValleyTeethWhitening.com or on Instagram at HV Teeth Whitening. Now, back to the epi. Resistance versus flow.
Okay, this was a big thing that I learned during my healing journey. So, and that was, you know, when I was drinking. So I realized when I was drinking, I was just resisting what I needed to feel, right? I was resisting what was. And through that, I was suffering.
Now, would you say that's resisting or what's the word? Like, is hiding
numbing
resisting?
It. Kind of. I mean,
numbing maybe. Okay.
Yeah, I was numbing, but I was like resisting to sit with it. I was resisting.
So you're refusing to dive into it. You're like, I'm going to drink instead.
Yeah. Gotcha. I'm like, I'm just going to numb this and not think about it and just power through.
Okay.
But yeah, I noticed that when I would resist things or like you have to accept situations for what they are. And the more I didn't do that or tried to control things, that's where I was suffering, in that space. So once I allowed things to just be and to flow with the universe, that's when things just became easy and things started to fall into place. And I was just much happier. So yeah.
How do you do that when things in your life are not going well?
You always have to trust that, you know, the good, the great, the bad, and the devastating is all for your highest good. You have to truly believe that and trust that. And in the moment, it does not seem that way. And I can obviously, you know, I've been there and I felt that way. I was like, why is God doing this to me? It's like, I'm a good person, you know? But in retrospect, looking back, like it was all laid out. My experiences were validated, and my experiences almost became like a roadmap, like this blueprint, like this was supposed to happen. I truly believe that. And it's very empowering when you get to that space. And it's important to understand just the whole aspect of the universe. Everything's about flow, right? Think about like your breath. Giving birth is, you know, the breath in and out, the waves in and out. Everything's just flowing. So that applies to us as well. Once we get into that, just flow. It's so much easier and better.
This is the second time I'm referencing Joel, but he always talks about how, and that was really, really deep stuff, but rejection is God's protection.
Yes. Rejection is redirection. It really is. It really, truly is. And once you really accept that, and it's hard to get to that. It is. It's hard when you're in pain and you're suffering. It's hard to see that. And most of the time we don't see it till after the fact, you know?
Okay. So somebody out there has just lost somebody significant in their life, and they do not see a way out. They can't. They just, you know, they sit there. I could speak on my own family. My grandfather died 7 years ago, maybe. One of his daughters sits with his ashes every day and cries and smokes cigarettes all day long.
Yeah.
You know, like people are really, really, and not currently right now, but this is what was happening for a long time. So somebody who's struggling like that really can't see a way out. What is your message to that person?
Yes. So I don't really like to tell people what to do or what they should do. I can only speak from my experience. And when I was in that place, I had this strange like realization. I was like, wait a second, you know, because I was laying in bed. The kids were doing whatever. I was just depressed, sad. Like I didn't want to do anything. And I was like, wait, if the roles were reversed right now and I was passed and I'm wherever I am and I'm observing my husband laying in bed, not taking care of the kids, I would come down there and smack him, you know, like I would want him to be doing what he needs to do, like live your life. And, you know, sure, I want you to cry and mourn me a little bit, but I want you to live life. Like life is to be lived. I want you to take care of the kids. You have to move on. Life goes on. It's the cycle of life, the flow of life. We're all going to face it. We're all going to experience loss. When I was going through loss, the only thing that really helped me was talking to others that had gone through it and experienced it. That's when I really felt seen and validated, and that I wasn't alone, because you really do feel so alone in your grief, even though you know everyone experiences it. It's just a very lonely place to be.
Through your research and work, what is something that you can share with us about what you've, and again, nobody knows this to be true about the afterlife, but about death? What are some things that you've learned about death?
Yeah, I mean, this might be a little woo-woo for some people, but I believe that before we come here, we have certain lessons that we agree to learn, like a blueprint for our soul, per se. And if you've never had a birth chart reading before, I highly recommend it. So it's basically the placement of the planets and the stars and everything when you were born. And it explains like certain life lessons and experiences that you may go through. And when I had my birth chart reading, it validated all of my experience for me. I can't recommend it enough. It was wonderful. It had all the passings and everything in it. So it really validated my experience and again, like made that roadmap for me. Like this was meant to happen. I was supposed to go through this to help others in some way. You know, that's my purpose. So it really helped me in that way. And also just after passing from my, you know, research that I've done, after you pass, you have like what's called a life review and you experience all the emotions that you gave to others. So if you've hurt somebody, you'll experience it. So it's like this big life review that you go through. And then, you know, you come back. I believe in, you know, coming back and yeah, like, you know, because
as a different thing or as a human or like, because I'm going to be tight if I come back and I'm like an ant.
To be honest, I don't
I'm
know.
so serious.
I don't know. But I think that you need to sometimes play out certain lessons. Like if you didn't learn the lesson in this life, you may have to play it out in the next life, see if you can do it. So that's why you got to learn the lesson now.
This is your message to change your life before you come back as a little baby red ant.
Yes. No, it's true though. I do feel like there's certain lessons we all are here to learn and experience, and we're all just trying to walk each other home.
This is incredible stuff. I swear. Like to me, this is such a different conversation.
Yes.
You know, and I think just exposing everybody to this and our audience, I think you really shed light on some incredible things. Awesome. Is there something that we didn't touch on today that you'd like to discuss?
Oh, I think just how to raise your vibration.
Yes.
So we talked about our lowing, right? Well, how can you raise it quickly? So obviously shifting into gratitude is, you know, but sometimes that's hard for people. So a little cheat code I would say is putting on binaural beats. They're like healing frequencies. You could play it on your Alexa. That's what I do. I blast them in my house all the time.
Binaural beats?
Binaural beats.
Binaural.
Yes. So a lot of people, you put headphones on and it kind of does something to your brainwaves, makes them like coherent. They're great for meditation. If you want to do that, you can try that. I just play them in the house. Like, you know, my kids think
like,
I'm
Ma,
nuts.
what are we doing?
They're like, what is this? They think I'm so strange, but you know, like just let me be.
Okay. Have you ever been called like a witch or something like that?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I'm at a point in my life that I don't give a shit what anybody says about me, you know? I'm just in my authentic space and I really don't care. So
I love it. So the binaural beats. Okay.
Yep. So that's a great way. Yep. What else is it? Grounding. What else? Just
these are behaviors to raise the frequency.
To raise your frequency. Okay. Yeah. So like the cheat codes are the easy as the binaural beats. You don't have to think about it. You just put it on, right? It's not really any work involved. Grounding, going outside barefoot. Those are great ways to just raise your vibe right away. And then more of the work is like shifting into gratitude. Let me write what I'm grateful for. But you can't just write it. You have to feel it.
See, this is where I think it gets hard. But I think you're touching on something that's great for people to do. And it's something that I do on a level that I think you can relate to. So when I'm upset, immediately what I do is I put on worship music. Okay. People see me with a headphone at work. If I'm in the car driving and I got off a phone call that pissed me off, I put on worship music. But there's really a resistance there to do it. I'm like, no, F this. I want to feel this. F this person. I don't care. And I'm just trying to talk you through like what I kind of go through. But I think people should identify one thing. Like this is for somebody who's out of this world, right? And now you're trying to get into this space. Identify one thing, whether it's the binaural beats or it's the worship music or it's the grounding, that you make a non-negotiable. When it happens and you're feeling that low frequency and you're feeling negative, I think you do one behavior and then also go through an affirmation and just do it. Don't get caught up in the stuff that I get caught up in with, well, this person deserved this. Well, just do it and see how you feel after. Because I can tell you, like, even with my daughter, she's crying, she's upset about something. I ask her, I say, what does Callie stand for? And she says to me, I don't want to say it now. And I go, what does Callie stand for? And she goes, kind, amazing, loving, independent, right? And then I see a switch. It takes a second. It takes a minute, but she's 4 years old. So like she's already sponging this stuff and I could see the impact that it's having. So I think as adults, it's much harder for us because we have all these learned behaviors that you've been talking about.
Oh, you're benefiting her so much. You have no idea what you're creating.
I like to believe that.
Yes. I mean, they're so like sponges until 7 years old. So you're creating her subconscious for her. It's really amazing.
I feel bad for her husband because I mean she's getting foot rubs every day. She's getting steak and salad daily. She's getting the affirmation.
She's not going to accept anything less. That's what you want. That's what you want. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, but do you agree with what I'm saying about like somebody taking and really making this tangible? Because I like to provide tangible things to people.
Yes.
So if they're struggling, they're in that negative space, identify one behavior that Jean is talking about here and just do it. And just commit to that.
Yes. Yeah, just one. And also, like, it's okay to feel it too, whatever the negative emotion is. Remember, it's not really negative, right? What is it teaching us? So sit and feel it. If you want to feel it and you want to scream and you want to, feel it, sit with it. It's an important part of the process. That's the whole resistance thing. Like, don't resist it.
Can you help my gender a little bit here? Okay. So I don't know if I speak for most guys, but the guys that I know, we get frustrated a lot.
Yeah.
We get really frustrated over little things. Like, how do we change that? It's a very hard question, but like, I wish I could leave a meeting and be like, I really don't care. I need my time frame of like 5 to 7 minutes where like, I kind of like curse you out in my head a little bit, or I'm talking my nonsense, and then I can come back to center.
Yes.
But that's even me in my relationship, right? Like if Katie and I have a disagreement or something, I'm not the best with diving right into that moment. I've committed now to a process, and this is something that I've learned in therapy, and I've failed miserably in my marriage. So this is why I'm good at this now. I've committed now to bettering my life, right? So my responsibility and my due diligence to my relationship is to step away for a normal amount of time. 15 minutes to an hour max. And then it's my responsibility to come back and have the conversation with the woman who deserves the conversation.
You're responding instead of reacting.
Yes.
And that's the key right there. It's okay to pause and to stop and to say, I need a minute or I need time. That I would definitely recommend for anger and men. Yes, you don't need to react. It actually shows more strength. Yeah.
Strength and shutting your mouth.
Yes.
It's hard.
You can be strong and,
I'm walking away and still talking shit.
Yeah. You could be strong, like muscle strong, but you could be strong mentally, discipline, right? Yeah. Like all these things are part of strength and even vulnerability. A lot of people think being vulnerable is weak, and it's very much the opposite.
That was me for a long time.
Yes. There's a lot of strength in vulnerability. Think about how hard it was for me to just sit here and tell my story, that's being vulnerable, but there's so much strength behind it. And I do recognize that and I see it. It doesn't make it easier a little bit, but
it's, the way you tell your story, you would never know that this is difficult for you. It's because you've done it so many times, whether that's in your head or out loud. But the work that you do really does speak through you. I think you're extremely intelligent.
Thank you.
Just well beyond this stuff, but also when it comes to this, you're a real expert. And I'm happy to connect with you. Happy to have you at, and expose you to not only this platform, but obviously what we're doing with the men, because I think, I don't know if I'm going out on a limb here, but like women are probably better at this stuff than men naturally. Like they're more receptive to it.
More emotional.
And I almost feel because I was so opposite, I almost feel like a purpose in this stuff too, and exposing men to this and really coming together as a community of men to try to incorporate this stuff into what we do. You have a woman here basically telling us everything we need to be doing, right? And we just need to do a little bit of
emotional intelligence. Yeah, it's so important for men. Men are starting to do it. I love it. I love what you're doing. I think it's incredible. And I hope it starts a wave,
That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think you're on the way. Yeah, you absolutely are. No one else is doing this. And I think it's incredible. And like, these are the type of men that women want, we want that. We want men to step it up. And, yeah.
Good. You guys heard it here first. Men, step it up.
Step it up.
Step it up
we
with
want
Jean Gutierrez.
Emotional, intelligent men.
Yes. Go ahead, take that sip of water.
Okay.
Because I don't want to put you on the spot because I know you love talking into the camera. Where can everybody find you and connect with you?
Okay. So the best way to connect with me is on my Instagram, The Woke Widow. In my bio, I have a link there for my Snip feed where you can book and see all my offerings and services. And you could book a free discovery call with me as well.
Very cool. Again, Gene, I'm very grateful for you.
I'm grateful for you.
I appreciate you coming on this podcast, having the conversation we've had. Really looking forward to diving into some more personal work for me.
Yes.
And keeping you close to not only this community, but what we're doing with Action Cultivates Excellence. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. This was so much fun.
You see, she was nervous at first, and she absolutely crushed it.
I had fun.
That's awesome. Thank you, Gene.
Thank you.
Guys, whether you've listened to one episode or 193 with The Woke Widow, we encourage you to share this show. We're very grateful for you, the listener, and we could not be on this path without you guys. So we'd love to thank you. You could shop the latest merch at nosnoozeshop.com. And until next time, stop snoozing.
Get up and get after it.
The Woke Widow just went off. You went off. Thank you guys for tuning in. That's another epi in the books. You can follow us on Instagram at No Snooze Podcast and leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, No Snooze. Shop the latest merch at nosnoozeshop.com. Come on.